Virts announced that he would not seek another term in office, and that prompted a couple candidates to come forward, two of which we'll be talking with here on the show this week. I'm Josh Durso for FingerLakes1.com, and this is Inside the FLX. We are back after a lengthy hiatus here, and today my guest is Rob Milby. Rob, thanks so much for coming in today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk a little bit about your roots in law enforcement and where this all started for you. When you think about where it began, where you are now running for sheriff, Wayne County, what's that? What goes through your mind? What do you think about?
Well, I mean, I've been employed with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office for the last 26 years. In 1995, I moved into Palmyra. It's been a pretty rewarding career. I've had many jobs as I grew up, and they all prepared me for a law enforcement career. They all prepared me for a public safety career. But this career, or this job that I took on in Wayne County was much different, had a lot more meaning to me. There was something to be said about having a guardianship mentality and a guardianship feeling of my own neighborhood, of where I lived, and the people that I lived around. Early on, my mentors recognized my abilities, and I was given the opportunity to move up through the ranks and progress in my career, and now I serve as Chief Deputy of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
When you think about passion, the passion that you have for law enforcement, what has kept that energy up? What has it been that has kept you pushing forward every day and wanting to continue to serve Wayne County, not just your neighborhood, like you said, but also the entire county?
Well, that's twofold of an answer. The first one is the victims. Victims drive me each and every single day. I don't think anybody can disagree with me when I say that New York State is all about, or all but forgotten our victims. With some of the new mandates that have come out and the reform incentives or the reform pushes that have come across recently. And the other is the men and women that work at our agency, law enforcement. It's a tough time to be a law enforcement officer, and I want to be there for them, and I want to be there to ensure that the public knows when they do things that are right, when they do things that are worthy of recognition, and I believe that our community deserves to know who it is that is out there enforcing our laws and protecting them when they sleep at night.
And when you look forward, what do you see as some of maybe the biggest issues facing law enforcement? Or what are voters, when you're talking to folks out in Wayne County, what are they bringing to you as maybe their big concerns, the things that really make them worried?
I've got to say that the biggest thing that I'm hearing right now is the issue of our Second Amendment rights. That is a big concern, especially for the constituents of Wayne County. And my answer to that is simple. I am a firm believer in defending the Constitution. I am a firm believer of law and order. And I will certainly defend everyone's right to keep and bear arms. That is something that people are concerned about, and they ask me all the time, if mandates come down to try and collect our weapons, will you enforce that? And I'd like to remind people that ask me that question, mandates are much similar to the mandates that we had during COVID. And I'm not about going into someone's house and violating their rights to enforce mandates. And we have what's in police work called the tactical pause. And a lot of times when mandates come down or executive orders come down, we take that tactical pause and give the judiciary a chance to overturn those things, to declare them unconstitutional.
When thinking about things like road safety and even substance abuse, which obviously leads to a whole host of different issues in the law enforcement community, Wayne County is pretty large. It's pretty spread out. What are some of the challenges on that front that you think, even judging directly from your experience, what are some of the issues that you think are most tackleable as far as making roads safer and sort of keeping communities safe? What items are kind of your guiding light on that front?
I would say that we're a pretty solid public safety agency. We're very effective. We are professional. We have achieved the higher standard that there is in public safety called accreditation. We rise to meet those standards every single day. It's tough to keep accreditation, but we've done it since the late 90s, and we will always do it. And moving forward, we will do it and maintain that as long as I'm sheriff. And what that does is it lets people recognize And it proves that you are doing the most that you can do and that you are doing the best by the people that you can. And I think that we're pretty effective. I think that we are out there enforcing the laws. We have incentives that are out there. We have grants that come down to us in order to make our roads safer. So we do enforce vehicle and traffic law, and sometimes there are pushes, incentives to do that, such as when the holidays come around, we want to make our roads safer, because there's one of the toughest parts of our job is to have to knock on a door and tell someone that they've lost a loved one due to a tragic accident. So there is the importance of traffic safety every day. We're facing an opioid crisis. We have officers that are dedicated to fighting that. We could always use more, but we can't do this alone. We have to know who it is that offers us some resources, and I sit at the table. I'm part of the opioid task force. I sit at the table with those county resources that all come together and provide paths, directions, and ideas as to how we can combat this together. And we're making some great strides here in Wayne County, and it's a collective approach.
When you think about the opioid crisis that pretty much every community is dealing with right now, is it hard to imagine a scenario where more manpower isn't part of the solution going down the road for especially some of the more rural sheriff's offices that maybe don't have a larger force to fall back onto, to maybe put a couple extra guys on those types of drug enforcement issues that maybe some of the larger forces do?
Well, budgets are always a concern. Yeah. And I mean, we're a mid-sized agency, and yes, we recognize that there is a drug problem. We recognize that there is an opioid problem, and we are trying to address that with a collective approach like I talked about prior. And we do that with partnering with other agencies. We have a task force where we partner with the local police agencies, and they commit manpower to investigations when they can. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's a difficult stretch, as it is for us all right now. But there are other ways that we can do business. We are not unfamiliar with being able to allocate some manpower from one unit to another in order to get the job done. And that's what we have to do in order to meet the need.
It's a collaborative effort for sure. One of the most asked questions, and we were talking a little bit about this before we came on here, one of the most asked questions we get as a newsroom is what can be done or what is being done within the law enforcement community to improve recruiting, to recruit young people to want to be police officers. Obviously, what we see in the news on a pretty regular basis is working a little bit against that, to say the least. My curiosity from your perspective, what are some of the things that you'd like to see, offices like the Wayne County Sheriff's Office do to, start to improve that relationship or maybe create a better narrative for young people so that, law enforcement is a career they want to go into?
That's a great question. Recruiting is certainly an increasing concern. We are seeing a shrinking of the pool of qualified candidates that come to the table to take the test to get into law enforcement. And that's not just in Wayne County, that's across the United States. Police officer isn't considered the prestigious career that it used to be. And a lot of times I think that's because there are a lot of good police officers out there that are being raked over the coals while they're adhering to the training that they were given, while they're adhering to their experience. And I think that just has become a great divide, and I've got to say that I understand that there are those that want to change the way we do business, but let's change the training. If we want to change that training, I'm all for it. Then we should do that, and we should not abandon our police officers who go to work every single day with the intention of doing good things out there in our streets. But to get back to the question, recruiting to me starts at youth. It starts with our young, and they see our police as positive role models. They're guardians, they're mentors, and that's why I'm behind the SRO program 100%. And I think we need an SRO in every school, and it doesn't matter if it's from the sheriff's office. It could be from any law enforcement agency. And we have 10 of them now in our schools, and we plan to put some more on. Mm-hmm. They have the mentoring that goes it's immeasurable. Yeah. We're seeing the positive results of those relationships now. and the good that face-to-face contact does with our students. And I would also invite, while that's going on, it's setting us up for the future, for future recruitment, which part of the sheriff's office, I have to look towards the future. And that's why I see recruitment starts with SROs. I mean, we participate in job fairs, we participate in community events, and we do what we can to get the word out. But I would also open the doors, and I would invite people from the community to come in. I'm not the only one with ideas. And if anybody has any other ideas that we can participate in and sit at the table and do it as a collaborative effort to come up with ways to recruit our young folks. And it also starts within the family. I often talk about how the kitchen table is the most important piece of furniture in the house. That's where you learn how to become who you are. That's where your values and your morals are instilled in you. And those conversations for recruitment, believe it or not, can start right there at the kitchen table. It starts with positive mentoring. And I frankly think America needs to get back to the kitchen table. That will help us all.
How concerned are you, say you are elected, how concerned are you about year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, in terms of being able to have a full department at that point, given the concerns and the issues that obviously you just highlighted, but like we were talking about before we did come on here, it takes time to get an officer from recruit to employed officer within the department. Is the lag time part of the challenge there? Or do you have any concerns about what that could look like for a department like the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, as you go forward 2, 4, 6, 8 years?
I don't. I don't. While there is the shrinking pool, there are still qualified candidates, good qualified candidates that are out there that we can choose from to recruit and to employ within the sheriff's office. Now, you're never going to stop everyone from leaving the sheriff's office. Everybody has different circumstances that come up in their life. Everybody does things for different reasons, and when a person takes on an employment with the sheriff's office, and they originally have that commitment, things can change, and we understand that. Our retention level has gotten a lot better in the last few years, and a lot of that had to do with the county working with the police officers and helping them out. They made great strides in their last collective bargaining agreement, and the entire county as a whole is showing their support for its public safety officers, and that also will help with retention.
I was going to say, does that help with morale and sort of the day-to-day in keeping folks focused and energized and ready to work every single day too?
Absolutely, but there's a ton that we can do in order to improve the morale of our police officers. Morale is something that can be easily pushed up with a simple act as everybody that I'm talking to now, if you're out there and about there in the public and you see a uniformed officer, no matter what agency they're from, reach out, shake their hand, tell them you appreciate what they do, and tell them that you're behind them. That'll go a long way. And not just the public, but they also need to hear that from their supervisors and from their leaders. And that's part of my plan. I plan to make sure that, listen, media makes sure that everybody knows when a police officer does something wrong. Media should also make sure that the public knows when a police officer does something that's good and noteworthy. I plan to be there and be that person to make that happen.
When you think about the sort of external pressures, the folks who want to see law enforcement change or the way policing happens change, what are how do you want to approach that conversation, or how will you approach that conversation? You mentioned an open door policy where you'll sit down and talk to anybody. Is that kind of where you want it to start in a very sort of direct hand-to-hand conversational way, as opposed to we've seen some other organizations try to do large sort of group sessions with different groups of the community or different portions of the community? Do you think the more direct face-to-face method could maybe be a little more effective in the long term at shaping what that looks like?
I do, but I want to digress a little bit. We've already taken that on. Yeah. We have already held police reform meetings mandated by the governor. And I participated in just about every single one of those. And there were some good things that came out of there. And I'd like to say that we are recognized as a professional public agency. I talked a little bit about accreditation earlier. Accreditation is, like I said, a maximum standard. We have 110 standards that we have to prove each and every year to show that we can maintain that professional standard. And I would venture to say, using my crystal ball here, that when the recommendations come out of Albany, the recommendations that come from Albany for police agencies are going to be very similar to the standards that we already maintain at the Sheriff's Office. But one of the things that we did discover through those meetings, through the collaborative effort of everybody that was involved, was that we've identified some people that would like to come to the table to have that open door discussion with the sheriff on a continual basis. And I think that's a great idea. You don't necessarily have to meet with a police officer because you need to report something. You don't necessarily have to meet with the sheriff because you want to lodge a complaint. Sometimes it's okay just to have open door discussions, open door dialogue, and to find out what's going on out there in the community and what the perceptions are. And I'm looking forward to getting to that table, because the most important piece of furniture in my office is going to be that table.
We've seen, obviously, policing change a lot just in terms of technology use.
Mm-hmm.
Patrol cars are literally stacked with all kinds of computers and everything else that could possibly be inside it. When you think about how aggressive technology has been in infiltrating every part of our lives on a daily basis, what do you see coming down the road the next, say, 5-10 years in terms of what role technology is going to play in further modernizing the work you guys are doing on a daily basis?
I'm proud to say that we have been ahead of the curve with technology at Wayne County Sheriff's Office. I've been a big proponent of technology, adopting new equipment, adopting new resources. I mean, let's face it, we have to stay up with those that are using those same technologies in nefarious ways against our public. Yeah. And we see that every day. Something as simple as a phone call telling me that my car warranty's been expired. How many get that? But
oh, just once a day? You just get that call once a day? Oh, okay.
I've got filters. We're a modernized agency. We rise to meet the needs on a daily basis, and we rise to meet the needs of our victims in different ways, and that includes technology. We're no stranger to it. We have people that are highly trained and have brought the most modern software and equipment back to Wayne County in an effort to protect our victims. There are those that use technology to keep trophies of their victims, trophies of their crimes. And you as a society demand that we find those electronic footprints. So we have already begun that journey to protect our victims, to make that happen. And we could use some help there. So that one of our efforts will be to expand our forensic investigation unit and to bring some more of that equipment, more of that technology. I mean, something as simple as somebody rifling through cars in a neighborhood. They'll usually carry a cell phone in their pocket. That right there is an electronic footprint. Mm-hmm. And we have ways to discover those footprints so that we can solve those crimes that are reported to us every day. So we are no stranger to technology. We have always been on the forefront of technology, and we're always looking for new ways to adopt technology.
And sort of a subcategory under that tech line is social media. Obviously beneficial for law enforcement agencies in some regards, I'm sure, whether it be getting tips or just letting the community know what's going on. But then also we see and we hear every day, it seems, or at least we're getting notified every day of new scams and new malicious attempts to try and take people's personal information, scam them for gift cards, money, etc., over social media. Does it kind of feel like that's going to be a new area of focus, or maybe a larger area of focus for departments like the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, moving into the future?
Well, we already utilize social media in order to advise the public.
Yeah.
As a fallout from police reform, or as an added benefit from police reform, we educate the public on what it is that we do, and the public has become a little bit more familiar with where to find us. We have a website the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. We have a Facebook for the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and you can read just about everything that we're doing every single day. And I plan on maintaining that use of social media, the use of traditional media, in order to get the word out. Because I'm finding that, with all of the problems that are out there, with all of the things, the misunderstandings that are out there, it's all about communication. Everything's about communication. And we could all work to communicate a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And what my last question for you here, appreciate you taking the time, of course. What's coming up for you? What are you focusing on? Maybe where are you going to be this summer as the temperature keeps going up and some of these festivals and town events pick up?
I'll be out there spreading the word.
Right.
I plan on being very, very visual, very vocal. I plan on being at our community events. On June 22nd of this month, we have a primary, a Republican primary. And I'm being primaried, and back in January at the Republican convention, I was nominated as the Republican designated candidate for the office of sheriff. But I am being primaried on June 22nd. I would encourage you all to check out my website, check out my Facebook page, milbyforsheriff.com, where you can read a little bit more about my beliefs, my positions, and what it is that's coming up, what it is that we've done, and where you can find us. So I would encourage you all to get out there on June 22nd if you're a registered Republican and vote Rob Milby for sheriff.
Rob, appreciate the time. We'll link to all of those in the show notes, but really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's all the time we have for this episode. As always, we will be back next Monday at 11 a.m. Check us out live on YouTube or Facebook, or subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform by clicking on the link in the article on FO1 or in the show notes here on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Inside the Finger Lakes is a production of FingerLakes1.com digital media. The show is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to shows like this one. It's hosted by me, Josh Durso, and if you want to hear archived episodes, visit InsideTheFLX.com. If you have an idea for a show, email it to josh@FingerLakes1.com or follow me on Twitter @FLXJosh, where we keep the conversation going all week long. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you back here next week.